Lovely to have you, Dr. Sarita Subramaniam, our guest today, Learning Monday guest, who is the founder of the Earth Brigade Foundation. And welcome to all of you who've come here to listen to yet another Learning Monday that we so look forward to bring you new guests who have done some amazing work. And I think it's been a couple of years since I first heard of you and your work. And to have you come here and to talk to our uh, people who watch the Learning Monday, thank you so much for doing that. And coming from Karzat, we have a lovely view, an in-depth view to the room behind you, and some fabulous stained glass there.
Thank you so much, Deepa. Thanks a lot to your team at Lumiere and Learning Mondays. It's truly a privilege and honor to be here. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love the stained glass too.
So, you, I think, started by becoming a dog lover. And then, even before that, you thought you might grow up to be a veterinarian, but life had other plans for you.
Yeah, I always loved dogs because I think my dad loved dogs and he had a way with children and dogs, and he just passed on those genes to me, I suppose. I always wanted to become a doctor, and since I loved animals, I just thought I would be a veterinarian. But that didn't happen, and when I didn't get into medicine, I got into dentistry, and that sort of completely changed my life. And I think I could help animals even being a dentist, a human dentist. So I'm happy.
And you said it's the magic number of 32 years of practicing dentistry.
Yes, I think 32 is a very sacred number for us dentists. In fact, my husband always would joke and say, I can count only up to 32 and that's enough. So, and it's like I passed out from Government Dental College in Bombay in November 1990. So I suppose 32 years and running. And off late, I have taken a break, but I do intend to get back to dentistry soon.
Yeah. So both you and your husband are dentists, and you have been practicing. And somewhere along the way, you got introduced to nature and wildlife. And tell us a little bit about that part of your life, which has become really your life work, Sarita.
Yeah, actually, I didn't go to any wildlife sanctuary, or at best it would have been Sanjay Gandhi National Park in Borivali. That too as a school picnic. I never went to any nature parks before I got married. And a year later, Subbu said, instead of Goa, let's go to a forest, a national park. And I think it was in the late 90s that we went, and Bandhavgarh and then Kana completely changed my life, because once you see the forest, Mother Nature envelops you. She just hugs you, and there's no way you can get out of her arms. That's the beauty of Mother Nature. You have to just be there, and everything else is taken care of. And after that, after the Kana visit, then we was also starting our practice, and we are middle class, first generation professionals, so we had to start our own practice. And so it gave us the luxury of having only annual holidays, but all our annual holidays were then slowly began only in national parks. So that's how we managed to visit many of our famous national parks, tiger housing ones. But we have also visited quite a few other places, since bird watching became a passion for both my husband and I.
So, of the animals, you've been passionate about so many domestic animals, wild animals, So, is there a pecking order in the animal kingdom for you? And where does the tiger come, and how does that become a big part of your work?
See, actually, growing up, I always like to see elephants, especially since I'm from Kerala. My parents are from Kerala, and we would go to Kerala often to the temples. So the temples, most of them had elephants, and we used to always like to even sit on elephants and all that. But growing up, I have realized that. That's not very nice. So earlier, I would believe that the elephant was my favorite animal, But I think time has proven that it's actually the tiger. The tiger is so majestic that once you've seen the tiger, uh, it's it's unforgettable. There is no way you can go back being the same person you were before you saw the tiger. The tiger commands that kind of respect. And why I have taken up sort of trying to save as much as possible the remaining species is that when you protect the tiger, you ensure that not only its habitat is protected but also all the other lower species. So I don't have to go and protect, let's say, one elephant or a butterfly or a bird. I protect the tiger, who is the umbrella species, and every species under that food chain gets automatic protection. And that's where I have also realized that while we want to protect individual species, we forget that we need to also do habitat protection. Otherwise, if we don't protect our natural habitats, without firing a single gun, without a single bullet being fired, we will end up with hardly any species left. And the ones which will be left will all die of inbreeding and mutation. So I have now realized that I need to do more to protect the habitat loss rather.
So for a good what 10 years you were primarily a birder, a visitor to safaris.
More, more. See, I think at least 25 to 30 years, I suppose, 25 plus years for sure. We've been traveling across the length and breadth of the country. So whether it is right from Arunachal Pradesh on the east or to Rajasthan, Thar Desert on the west, or Ladakh, in the north, really north, and Nicobar in the south. We've traveled quite a bit in between also. So that has enriched me. In fact, I feel Mother Nature has really taught me so much. So, I half joke and half in seriousness, I do say that whatever little I do, I'm repaying Mother Nature's, through teachings, through my tuition fees. It's just a token of what she's taught me that I'm trying to give back. So, whatever little I do for conservation, that's what I try to do. Of course, and then if you ask me about stray animals, then I love dogs. I have 4 of them in the farm. We have 2 cats and 1 cow.
So coming back to this, this thing of you go there to observe wildlife, and then bit by bit you're transforming, you're
Yes,
changing. So tell
yes,
us, what were the kind of conversations maybe you and Subbu were having? When did this, uh, from being a nature lover to someone who became an activist, or
yeah,
someone who was a nature student to become an activist? So if you can sort of recount some events,
yeah.
people, or moments that
Yes.
were the starting point of your transformation, Sarita?
See, like most of the people who go to a wildlife sanctuary, initially, even I was, more keen on seeing a particular tiger, a particular bird. As a bird watcher, you want to see certain target species, endemic species. So you travel to see only those birds and animals. But slowly, there is a process that everybody goes through. There is, you tend to evolve from being just a hobbyist to somebody who needs to take it to the next level and become more concerned. And see, each of us has that growth phase. If the learning curve is followed, then we will all end up becoming more sensitized to nature.
Correct.
So one of the reasons why, though when I used to comment on Facebook, it was like I'm just sitting in my AC room and I'm commenting. But people used to forget that I'm commenting right now, but all those years, decades of, uh, going first-hand experience of not just interacting with the forest officials. So we would do, as dentists, we would do um, uh, health checkup camps, dental health checkup camps for the forest guards, for the staff in the forest canteens, provide them with whatever dental help we could. Not treatment, only checkups, because treatment would need a setup. And we, even before we had our NGO, Subbu and I would donate a lot of stuff, even with what little we had. Trust me, we had very little, but we wanted to give back always. And when you see the poor around the forested areas, trust me, the poorest of poor in India live in these areas because they are resource poor. They don't have adequate resources, which our urban poor have. I do believe there is a category called an urban poor, which we completely ignore. But that is not, they are not resource poor. The poor around the tribals and all of them around the forested areas really lack the resources to even come up. So we would donate solar lamps. The first solar lamp we gave was to a small village which used to constantly get inundated when the Ram Ganga was in spate in near Corbett. And I remember we had this was during the World Cup, so we were staying in a forest rest house. We would come down to watch the match. Before that, distribute all the lamps, then go see the match. And India won the semi-finals, so we had to come back for the finals. So I remember that year very well. And then we started distributing solar lamps because I realized that the women and children don't get adequate again privileges. So she had to cook with a kerosene lamp, the children had to study under the kerosene lamp, which was all not very comfortable and definitely dangerous. And for me, I also realized that many of these women, for their ablutions of, go early morning or late evening when the men folk are not around, so they want to complete all their morning duties before the men folk arise. The issue was then they then crouch and they become vulnerable for a predator. And you will realize that many of the victims of big cat attacks, whether it is a leopard or a tiger, they are usually women and men who have weak prostrate and tend to crouch. So I wanted them to carry with them a solar lamp, which is why we even gave solar lamps to the Adivasis in RA and when the leopard attack was happening. So we had a growth phase where we were already doing things, but it was on a very small scale. That is when I realized that I need to have an NGO, because then there are people who are willing to trust me with their funds and knowing fully well that it will reach where it is meant to. But before I started my NGO, it was in 2014 that I realized the activist in me. Otherwise, I was very goody goody, very, I had to maintain a doctor like image. So I I used to not get into too many fights, let's say. But 2014, Ustad T24, the tiger, was taken away from the jungles in Ranthambore to the zoo, kept in captivity, for he was supposed to have killed 4 people. But I then realized that all the stalwarts and all those people I myself who used to admire and think that they are our tiger conservationists, I think they all fell off the pedestal, for their Ustad sort of exposed them. And the reality of the situation is that, Deepa, you want to become rich, become a tiger conservationist. There's a lot of money in tiger conservation. And unfortunately, all the policies, the policy makers, they are all rooted in old, archaic, and obsolete ways, not keeping up with the times. So all that was for me a revelation. I didn't know about the WPA, that is the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. I started learning. We had candlelight marches for Ustad. We tried a lot. I went and met quite a few politicians. I used to travel to Delhi often to meet bureaucrats and politicians to ensure that he was sent back to the wild, but he unfortunately still languishes in the zoo. But Ustad made me realize, probably he's the one who stirred the activist in me. Otherwise, I've been very self-righteous, but not put into use, let's say. So I realized that wildlife are not definitely safe in the hands of the existing tiger conservationists. A lot of us need to rally, behind the tiger. Uh, we have outsourced the welfare to people and been very comfortable in our own homes. We need to step out of the comfort zone. And then, of course, So while I tried for Ustad, most of it was behind closed doors, not much. Initially, a lot was aired and publicized on social media.
Mm.
So I was obviously branded a social media activist,
Okay.
an armchair activist who wouldn't do, but I would not really talk or write about the things that I would do for Ustad. For years I would go to Delhi or keep trying to meet people and do a lot for Ustad, but it didn't happen. But by the time it was 2018, uh, I think around 2017 November, the first shoot to kill, first capture order for Avni was given, and I came to know about it through a tracker and a trapper who was in touch with me regularly, and he sort of helped the private hunter shoot a leopard in Maharashtra. And when he said he is going to Yavatmal, my antenna was up, and I was wondering why is he going to Yavatmal. And then I found out about Avni, that she didn't have a name. That there's this tigress who's supposed to have killed 9 or 10 people, and she's been given the shoot to kill order. So I tried a lot personally to talk to the bureaucrats, the wildlife wardens in Maharashtra, the NTCA. I did manage to get the NTCA to have a committee come to Yavatmal. Now, here you have to understand, Deepa. See, I am a person with no locus standi in the team, in the world of conservation. I'm not a wildlife biologist. I'm not an IFS officer. I didn't have an NGO where I was like, sort of co- consulting, let's say, with forest departments. So I had no locus standi other than the fact that I'm a controversy monger, which I think is a good thing now. Okay, without, if we don't get into controversy, we don't change things. Things will be status quo. So we need the controversy mongers. And I then realized that the bureaucracy is not able to help. I tried talking to a few politicians across party lines. See, for me, I'm not, while I might be seen as anti a particular party, but for me, it is only about conservation and wildlife and women. Okay, women and children. So I then got into Avni's fight to keep her alive initially. So I managed to get the NTCA to send a team of tranquilizing experts from Karnataka.
Okay.
Now, it is sad, but back then, and it is even sadder now, that we don't have in Maharashtra for sure a dedicated team of wildlife veterinarians who are trained in tranquilization of wild animals, especially
Okay.
wild animals on the move. So we got somebody from Karnataka. I managed to get all this done. Now, in hindsight, I think it was amazing that somebody's lying in bed in Bombay was managing to get things moving in, the bureaucratic circles to get things done in to save a tiger. But the time when she was issued the first shoot to kill order, I had sent an email to a lawyer in Nagpur. He took that email and went to the court and managed to get a suo moto action taken by the court itself to stop the shooting and killing. So that
Okay.
happened somewhere in February of 2018, February 2018. From then, the Maharashtra Forest Department had enough time till August to capture her, which they failed to do.
Oh.
And in August, again, she was given the shoot to kill order when I think the 10th or 11th, allegedly the 10th or 11th human victim was found. Throughout this, I found a lot of discrepancies in the way. This is something which Ustad taught me, to look for discrepancies in the narrative pushed by the forest department and the supporting tiger conservationists we hold in such high esteem. How they collaborate with the forest department to push a particular narrative. So if they don't have, most of them have only circumstantial evidence, and how they use it to manipulate, to sort of blame a particular speechless animal. The animal is not going to stand up with get a morcha or indulge in mob violence or beat up forest officials, right? Which is what the locals do. The animal can't. So the animal is rendered without any representation, without any supporting people. So I managed to file another PIL. This was my second PIL. By then, okay, I have to tell you, I have no legal knowledge. I have no legal expertise. I just knew that since the bureaucracy and our politicians failed, it was only the judiciary that was left to seek help for Avni. Unfortunately, I lost the second PIL as well. But by now, you must have realized I'm very stubborn. So I went to the Supreme Court.
Okay.
And unfortunately, though the honorable judges heard us for almost 25-30 minutes, they dismissed our case. Now, one of the reasons why Avni probably resonated with me was because she was a mother. I just couldn't believe that those people who talk about tiger conservation and say save the species, how do you do conservation of a species if you're going to kill a mother and her two cubs? For me, conservation starts with the mother and the two cubs, right? So even those who say don't fight for one individual, you're supposed to fight for the entire species. But this is all wrong. You can't kill a mother and two cubs and say that we are trying to conserve the entire species. It's all skewed for me. So unfortunately, when I lost in the Supreme Court, I was bedridden and I was on a wheelchair, even in the Supreme Court. I used to travel only on wheelchairs. Even when I used to visit the Mantralaya, everything was on wheelchairs only. But when I realized that all hope is lost, now if the Supreme Court says no, she has to be shot dead, I didn't know what to do. But the stubborn person that I am, I decided to go to the people after we lost in the Supreme Court. Now, I think somebody only as obstinate as I am can actually think of reviving something which is like, I don't want to say this, but it's like flogging a dead horse, you know. And yet, Avni's campaign is probably one of the most sustainable campaign that has ever happened for a tiger. And that too, it's because, and across the country and even abroad, that is because she was a mother. People immediately identified with her. Trust me, nobody alive, so to speak, apart from the veterinarians who saw her, have seen her alive. There are only camera trap images of this tiger who has killed so many people. And there were a lot of discrepancies. For example, to the logical mind, this should come. I don't know why it never occurred to them. Out of the 9 or 10 human killings attributed to Avni, officially attributed to Avni, 6 or 7 of them were on weekends. Now, I don't know a single tiger who kills on weekends and says, "Oh, Sunday I want to have a human, flesh. Thoda alag ho jayega." I don't think animals kill like that. Animals kill to just sustain, and they kill whenever it is. There is no pattern as such on the days. So these are obvious, glaring mistakes that I found in their story, but it wouldn't hold. But Avni's campaign really mobilized a lot of people. Unfortunately, we couldn't go back to the court so soon because the Supreme Court had said no. But you'll be surprised that we went back to the Nagpur High Court. And the Nagpur High Court, in its infinite wisdom, took our case to notice when we brought the lacuna and all the issues related to the events between, let's say, when the order was passed and now. So we showed how a lot of wrongdoings are being done by the Forest Department and the private hunter. After 2 great hearings, the third hearing, we were dismissed. So I had lost all hope, but I was thinking of going back to the Supreme Court. But it took some time. It's not easy, and contrary to what people always say, especially on social media, file a PIL, somebody should file a PIL. It is very, very difficult in India to break through the legal system, and that too a PIL, to find a lawyer, to find somebody who's motivated, to find who will not charge the earth and the sky and the moon, and then to actually have him, speak earnestly in court. Very difficult. But we did manage to find Mr. Bhandarkar, who has been really amazing. And I have to mention even Mr. Anand Grover and Asta Sharma, my two advocates from Supreme Court, who did it completely pro bono. So there were people who accused me of collecting a lot of money, but for Avni, I haven't. She was too personal for Subbu and me. We never collected a single paisa in Avni's name. So whatever we were spending uh, was usually from our savings, including all our airfare, travel, everything was borne by us, though it was the NGO which was fighting. And within 10 days of us losing the third PIL in the High Court, Avni was shot dead, more or less how we had predicted. Our fourth PIL is going on now in the Nagpur High Court to try and get some justice to her and her two cubs. So that the people, the forest officials and the private hunters who colluded with each other to make this happen are penalized. So that's my saga.
You call it Earth Brigade
Foundation.
Foundation, yeah, and it's in a sense all of this work that you are doing. It's a marvel. The circumstances in which all of these uh, moving to court happened for you in the past few years, and what you wanted to do through this session is to create that awareness.
Yeah.
We always say that education is the first step to conservation because activism can probably only get thus far. But the point you make is that we need to create, sometimes you need to have uh, an extraordinary level of noise to create what
Yes.
we up the ante on
Yes.
awareness and move it to a different level. So you sort of, in a sense, uh, rearrange the system or attempt to sort of realign and rearrange the system. And what I find in a very heartening video that I saw yesterday is a lot of water bodies that you have created as part of the conservation movement. So it's not just about taking the case of individual animals, but also to work for the whole class of animals by providing watering holes and solar powered uh, systems that you have for pump sets. So tell us maybe a little bit in this last section on this project, and who are the partners, and do you also work with government, or even over here is there any collaboration that's happened?
See, I have to tell you this. Even with Avni's campaign, I couldn't have succeeded to whatever we have, if I can call it success, without the help of our dedicated and extremely sincere forest officials. Trust me, without them, our forests will not be safe even now, despite everything. The present scenario is not at all heartening, but we have very dedicated officers, and I am extremely lucky that they have sort of realized that my activism side to me is there, but that's the plain speaking side to me. But I also genuinely care for wildlife and nature. So while they have, see, I'm, because by now I'm notorious, so my infamy does take me a long way. But I have collaborated with forest officials who have not asked me, and neither have I given a single paisa as kickback or bribe. I might be the only person who manages. I don't take any favors. I don't take any favors. I don't give any favors. And yet we have managed to give over 50 solar installations across the country, in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, in Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Maharashtra. We have done this inside the forest so that the solar pump set generates water, and the wildlife and the forest patrolling camps, the staff get water. Now, what this does also is the fact that there is water, it means there is micro habitat development, there is sustainability within the forest. I am actually bringing back whatever is lost. See, with our growing population, we are digging so many bore wells, left, right, and center. We are drawing out so much more water for us that people will be surprised to know that many of our forests are dry and barren. It's not how it looks on, let's say, some of the talent documentaries. Even the most, let's say, dense forest will have patches of dry areas. So in my effort to provide these water holes, what we do is we also try and link it to multiple water bodies,
Mm-hmm.
so that it's not, the water is not just going to one particular pond, it goes to different people. As a woman, I tend to multitask, so you want different areas to get sustained form of water. And the habitat also develops. It is so to see when the animals come to drink water there. It means they are safe, they feel secure. Plus, these animals don't go out in search of water, especially during the summer months, which leads to a lot of conflict situations. So I'm minimizing, wildlife
Yes.
conflict situation. It helps in both ways. Giving water directly. See, one thing, Deepa, I've realized is conservationists talk about advocacy. Just talk, just educate and do, and help the local stakeholders, thereby hoping that wildlife conservation happens. I feel, let's catch the nose like this. Why go round our neck? So let me do something to directly benefit wildlife. And
Yeah.
what more than water, no?
Yeah. 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 So, we've come to the end of our session today, and there could be many themes that we could be talking to uh, Dr. Sarita Subramaniam today. The one that we picked up is really the most uh, poignant, which is the work that she has done for the tiger. Never mind the that they didn't see success at the end of the quest, but what is so heartening and what's so inspiring is that she is unfazed. She continues to be as passionate and as devoted to the cause, and uh, tirelessly working despite I think some health setbacks. You've been like a tigress yourself, on really trying to do something for not just tigers but for animals at large. And of course, we've not spoken about your human patients, or the fact that there is so much empathy, care, and concern in the work that you do. uh, I before
For
going
Pink
and
Brigade?
the Pink Brigade is what we've
Yeah.
not talked about. The
Yeah.
Pink Brigade we've not talked about. We've not talked about the work that you do with the animals, with
Yeah.
the root canal treatments that you're
Yeah.
doing, for instance, or the work you do with babies and infants with respect to their teeth. So,
Yeah.
we think of tiger, we think of teeth, we think of Sarita, and I'm just sort of making this whole connection that her book, which very famously is called the tooth, the whole tooth and nothing but the tooth. So just like you've told us about the truth, there is the tooth. And thank you so much for coming here and sharing this part of your story, and
Thank
I hope to have more conversations with you, Sarita.
Sure, definitely. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me over, Deepa. And yes, I would definitely like to come over and talk about us, Pink Brigade and the Street Brigade.
Thank you, and good luck,
Thank you
and
so
more
much.
power to you and to Subbu for the work you
Thank you.
do.
Thank you. We need that. Thank you.